This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent. But this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Welcome, everybody, to A Silent War Within. We're in a little different place here. We're in SRP Studios in Hernando, Mississippi. We're having a great time with Chris Camp. Just recorded his podcast, Motivate. Go check that out. He has some really great episodes. Dude, I've been watching your stuff, and it is extremely good.
Thank you, sir. I
really enjoy it. But Chris, you're very interesting. So you guys know what we do here. I don't have to really introduce the concept for the show. Chris is somebody that we reached out to because we saw your podcast, but also he invited me to come do his. We got to watching yours. Really loved it. He's been talking with Angel, and then we wound up meeting at a mental health conference in Memphis this week, or last week now. But it was one of those meetings that was like godsend kind of thing, like, hey, Chris, happy to be on your podcast, and we just kind of connected. But one of the things that I like to start off with, because I think this is the big basis of how we communicate and how we get through things, is kind of your story. You started off, and I got my phone here for notes because I don't have usually it's Riverside, so I have screens everywhere. So this is a little different for me. But you started out roots in Walls, Mississippi, and you have been everything from in the Air Force to a paramedic at Memphis Fire, 35, is that right?
35.
Did you correct me on the
marathons.
Yeah,
yes.
35 marathons. And you've done all kind of stuff. You've been a 30-year sports coach. You are now a podcaster. You're a family man. So tell us your story from the gravel roads of Walls. Where did Chris Camp start? How'd you get to all these titles and where you are? And why has your life been so dedicated to helping others?
Well, so thanks, first of all, Kevin, for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure to be on someone else's podcast. One thing I like to do is talk. My wife loves it when I go somewhere else and talk, because then that's less words I have to use at the house. She reminds me of that often.
Same.
So the fast story on it is this. I grew up in a very humble household down in Walls, Mississippi. Small house, small area. Back then, Walls had a few hundred people. I mean, it's grown a lot since then, but not very many folks. And I think that those moments in my life were very formative in the fact that you grew up independent. We lived out in the country, Kevin. So my mom was that proverbial 1980s mom where she's like, get out of the house, make sure you're home by the time that the lights come on outside. It was that literal sense. And we would go out in the woods and we would play.
Drink out of the water hose.
Dude, we would drink out of water hose. We drink out of creeks. So I don't know that was safe. I'm not telling other people to try that, but we lived outside, and that actually instilled in me a lot of leadership qualities that I didn't know I was gaining at the time, because I was the older kid in the neighborhood. We'd have 7 to 10 kids running around together, and I was the one kind of shooting out, let's go do this, let's go do that. And people followed that. Mm-hmm. I think that was important. That gave me the confidence to be able to pursue things in my life. It's funny how when you're a kid or you're a teenager or even an adult, maybe you're doing things that you don't realize is giving you something that you're going to be able to use in another aspect of your life. But that's what that was giving me. I was getting the idea that I could be in charge of stuff and things would work out because I had ideas. And I was doing that. Well, whenever you get older, things change. And I knew I wanted to do something that was important. So whenever I get out of high school, just a little fun fact. Do you mind fun facts?
I love fun facts.
Kevin, I got some fun facts, man.
Hit me with fun facts.
I was not a great academic person, but I was very well known. I was loud. I've always been loud. I've always been energetic. I've always been on a stage. It didn't matter what it was.
I would never believe that.
It's all true. Three plays. I was a baseball player in high school. Man, I loved entertaining. I loved having fun. And so I didn't love school. I didn't love academics is what I should say. And I was a CD student, strong CD student.
Same.
When I go around and talk to schools, I usually start, because I'll speak at schools all the time, being a professional speaker. I'll go and talk to the high schools, and I start out with, what do you think my ACT score was? And they're always shocked to find out 16 was the highest I ever got on the ACT, but I knew that got me into junior college. So that was all I cared about. So whenever I got into junior college, actually, my first goal was, I said, I want to do something important and I want to help people. So I'm going to be a cop. So that was my first thing. I got an associate's degree in criminal justice.
Okay.
And I'm going through school. I think to myself, this is going to be great. I'm going to graduate here. I'll go to Delta State or somewhere where all my friends are going. But then things changed. I got introduced to the idea of going in the military. I said, man, that's awesome. So I went in the military. And guess what, Kevin?
What?
I did not become a cop in the military.
Okay. What did you become in the military?
It was horrible. I was a satellite operator. I thought to myself, this is going to be great, man. I'm going to be able to learn if there's space aliens. I'm going to do some space cadet stuff. I didn't know. Dude, I sat behind a DOS computer, boring as all get out. 8 hours a day, y'all. I'm going to tell you right now, this energy is all the time. I was just shaking everything. They're like, what is wrong with this guy? I'm like, I can't do this. So I did that for 1 year. And then I changed jobs, became a database analyst.
That sounds just as boring.
Absolutely horrible. But it did give me the opportunity to travel.
Okay.
So I went overseas, went to Saudi Arabia, did a few other different things, and I thought that was pretty cool. Did my 4 years. I said, I got to get out of here. Now, this is where things changed for me because I know what your podcast is about. And so this is where it all blends into. All of these moments, I was still trying to grow and find the person I was going to become. Mm-hmm. In the Air Force, I actually got another associate's degree. It was in production management. I thought, well, maybe I'll do something in this. No, no, sir. Not going to do that. A person moved in next door to me 2 weeks before I got out of the Air Force, and he was a firefighter. And he started telling me about what the fire schedule was, the things that they do, the calls they go on. I'm like,
here it comes.
I grew up a Johnny and Roy fan from Emergency. I remember acting like a firefighter as a kid. Yeah. I knew that was another job that would probably blend with my personality. So I said, let me give it a shot. So we get out of the Air Force, we move home, and within, I would say a week, I went to the local volunteer fire department, signed up, and started training and started doing firefight stuff. Now, we spoke on my show. Yeah. And I told you about the moment that things changed for me was the very first fire we went on, the first house fire. Now, I will tell you, I was scared. I was scared to death because I'd never been in a house fire. We roll up, there's flames coming out the back window. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. And we run inside and man, we're hitting it. The heat's coming down on us. And we put the fire out. We come out and I'm like, oh my God, I got to do that for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
It was that fast.
I feel that.
It was absolutely no question whatsoever, Kevin, what I wanted to do for the rest of my freaking life. I'm like, show me the way. How do I get there? I started making phone calls. I'm like, I want to go to Memphis. My energy, my personality, I wanted to be on the biggest stage with the biggest things. And I wanted to do the thing, man. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be Johnny and Roy times 10. So I started calling around. They're like, are you an EMT? Are you an EMT? I'm like, no, I don't know anything about that, but I'm a volunteer firefighter. They're like, well, if you want to come to Memphis, you need to get your EMT license. And what do you know about EMT?
You got to go to school.
It ain't easy.
It ain't easy.
And up to this point, I had not really been academically challenged. That's what I knew. I knew that all the way through I made bad grades, but it wasn't because I was dumb. It was because I wasn't interested.
That's what I was going to ask.
I wasn't interested. Nothing grabbed my attention. If I read 2 paragraphs of something, I was so done. And I'd have to go back and be like, what did I just read? I don't even know what I just read. So I sign up, and the person at the school, even though now I want y'all to understand, I had 2 associate's degrees at this point. I had been in the military for 4 years. The person at the school, the counselor that's signing me in, he's like, you sure about this? EMT school is really hard. We have a high washout rate. I was like, yeah, I'm good. He goes, yeah, but you only made 16. I was like, I got 2 associate's degrees. It was like, yeah, I don't know. And there was debate whether or not I could get into the class. They let me in. I said, I will prove to them. I'm going to tell you something. Look, I don't know what questions you got. You can throw questions in any time, but I'm just building you up to the moment I became an actual EMT firefighter. So the background history, you see how the steps came along, and I kept challenging myself a little bit, but never really truly. Actually, what I realized was I never truly applied myself. And straight out the box, man, I was so focused. I was studying. You couldn't tell me to, if you're like, stop studying, you study. No, I'm going to find a way. I was making notes. I was writing everything down. I fell in love with the EMS side of things. I knew I already had the love for the firefighting because I had just experienced it. And now here it is, the EMS thing. I am like, I couldn't get enough of it. I slept and I dreamed about questions from the book. It was so much. I ended up going through the class and I finished with a 96 overall average.
That's awesome.
You want to know who was most shocked? My mom. She's like, what are you doing? How did you do this? I'm like, you don't understand. I love it. I love it. Now, I think what is interesting to be said here, because I want to know what other questions you have, because I'll talk too much. But whenever we got out of the Air Force, I was married. I was almost 25. I was going on 25 at the time when I got out of the Air Force. I had a 1-year-old son, and we moved back home with my mom and dad. And I was living in a 10-foot by 10-foot bedroom with a mattress on the floor because we just got out of the Air Force. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have life figured out. I didn't have a true idea of what I wanted to do when we first moved home. I knew I wanted to look into firefighting at that moment.
Yeah.
I was working at Pizza Hut waiting tables and a shoe store of clothing, like a sports store in the mall, for 2 part-time jobs just to try to make ends meet. Living at home with my parents, with a wife and a 1-year-old.
And what was your thought process at this time? Like, where was your mind? Is this just how life is going to be? Mm-mm. Or is this, I mean, where are the aspirations? Where are the goals? Where are the dreams in this? Like, and how are you dealing with this? How are you dealing with this full plate and all these things? And you're back at mom's house, which I've been there. That takes kind of a toll on your mental health too. Like, I'm back at mom's. This is not where I intended to be. So talk through that. Where does that go for you?
Yeah. So I was a very independent person. I think the background that is important on this is the fact growing up, being left to my own devices at the early age of like 6, being outside all day long, I always felt capable, unvalidated to the point where I had never proven anything to anybody. But I was always thinking to myself, I could do something. I could do anything, really, is what the thought was. Yeah. So when I decided to go to college, people was like, you never go to college. I go to college to get my associate's degree. I'm like, I'm going to military. My friends and stuff like, oh, you'll never make it in the military. You're too high. They'll kick you out. You go to jail. I made it through 4 years in the military. While I was in there, get another associate's degree. So my point is, all the way up to that point, I never doubted I was going to do something with my life and be something important. I never doubted that. I just didn't know what it was. So when I moved back home and I'm living with my mom, and that first volunteer firefighter fire sparks, you know, the analogy, sparks the fire within me. When I go to EMT school, I couldn't get enough of it, and I had something driving me. I knew I wanted to have my own place. I wanted my son to grow up in his own house. So even if I wanted to fail myself, even if I would have said this is too tough for me, I was not going to fail them, no matter what. So I get through EMT school. We're still living at my mom's house. And I say, all right, so now let's go. I put in my application. I did a cattle call up at Memphis. I'm like, all right, tomorrow they're probably going to call me. They're ready to go. A couple weeks go by. Nothing. A month goes. I said, what are they doing? Why are they taking so long? I've been in the military, y'all. Yeah. So I'm thinking this should go fast. Nothing's happening. So now I'm like, I gotta do more than just 2 part-time jobs. So I start wiring houses. Nobody saw that coming. So I become this journeyman to get my electrician license to wire residential homes. I did that for about 7 months, working with a guy who was a friend of mine. The whole time, I'm still volunteer firefighting. I'm like, where's this application going? Yeah. Nothing's happening, and I'm losing my mind. So finally I said, you know what? This goes back to my independence. Who's in control of my life? Is it the Memphis Fire Department?
No.
Is it even at this point, now that I'm grown, is it really my parents?
No.
I went and looked in the mirror.
It's you.
I said, the only person keeping me from becoming what I want to be next is me. So the question I have to ask myself is, what can I do to change my situation? That was the easy answer. Become a paramedic. Because what I knew at that point, after practicing, going to the fire department, being on the volunteer, was if you're a paramedic, you cannot not find a job.
You're exactly right.
People going to hire you. You may not be a firefighter, but you're going to be on an ambulance.
And that's in any city in the United States.
You are not going without a job.
You're not going to be unemployed as a paramedic.
So I said, let's do this. Now, we already know about my academic history.
Yep.
Not great. So I signed up. Same approach. Kevin, fell in love, man. Up to this point, now we've been running calls on a volunteer fire department. Right. We made some tough calls. We made wrecks. We made fire. We made people burned up. We did the stuff, but I wasn't responsible for it. I was an EMT basic. I was working as a volunteer. We had all the other people. We had paramedics there.
Yep.
And I'm like, I think I can do all of this. So I go to paramedic school, man, and I take that same approach, and I'm so gung-ho. I am so deep in it. I could quote to you literally paragraphs out of the book. Now, when I went, this is like 2000. This is like 1999, 2000. I'm in paramedic school. And, yeah,
a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. And we took bubble test and they did the Scantron, all that kind of stuff. So I had my book highlighted up and questions written all over the place. I ended up finishing paramedic school with a 97 overall average.
Oh my gosh.
I could not study enough.
Dude, 97?
97. How
many hours of clinicals did you have to do?
Man.
Was it 600 like it is now, or was it less or more?
I really wish I could give you a good answer on that. I don't know what the hours were, but I want to say it was something like 20 hospital rotations.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it was 20 ambulance rides. I mean, but it was built in through a year process because it was a 1-year program. So I was the last class at Northwest that started in the summer, ended in the summer. And I was an EMT basic. So we didn't have a middle. Well, they actually had intermediate, but you didn't have to get that. You could go from basic to paramedic. And so that's what I did. So it's out of basic. I never got any other level, went in straight through 1-year paramedic. And I can just remember getting in trouble, not once, but twice at a hospital because my shift was up. And they're like, you're past your shift. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. And I just wanted to keep working.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep going. I was asking doctors questions after questions. One of my favorite memories. You mind if I share this? I love sharing these.
Yeah, go
these
ahead.
are like core memory. Maybe I'll look back
this.
on it or something. And I'll be like, yeah, I remember that moment now. So I found myself in ICU. We were doing ICU rotations.
Okay.
And this guy was tanking. And you hear all the bells and whistles going off. And I just happened to be walking by his room. At the same time, I look out of the corner of my eye, and the nurses are charging towards his room from the nurses station. And I just go into the room. So it's like I'm making rounds. I'm getting vitals. I'm doing the things that paramedic students do. So I just filter into the room. Because everybody's coming in behind me, they push me. I end up next to the guy. Now, this dude, I couldn't tell you to this day what all was going wrong with him. I just know he was tanking. And they start drawing, doctors are running in, they're calling for this, and they start drawing up meds. I don't even know what the meds are, Kevin. But I'm next to his IV. And they start handing me the syringes. I'm like, all right, how fast do I push this? And they're like telling me, and I'm just like, I'm doing it at the speed they're wanting.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, one of the doctors is saying, is he a student? They didn't even know that. They didn't know. I don't think they cared. I was just standing there, and the nurses started handing me stuff. I walk out of that room, dude, and one of the nurses came and she goes, "You were very calm with that." I said, "Dude, I felt like I was in my element." It was actually a turning moment that was the first high acuity moment. I was kind of the center focus, and not only did I not crack, I felt like that was where I belonged. Mm-hmm. I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is it." I couldn't get enough of it. So anyways, I finished up paramedic school. And in the process of school, I ended up getting hired by DeSoto County EMS.
Okay.
You familiar with these guys?
Absolutely.
They have 3 paid services. You have Eudora, Lewisburg, and Walls. Mm-hmm. And so I get hired by DeSoto County, which basically means you'll get assigned to a unit, but you could end up working on any unit on a given shift, depending on what is needed. So I end up in Eudora. What do you know about Eudora?
Pretty slow.
Very slow.
Pretty slow.
Very small town. Mm-hmm. Now I think your people out here know.
Yeah.
I'm wanting action. Like, I want the big stuff. Give me some big stuff.
I think that's clear by now.
Yes.
I think everybody can see that on your face.
I want it. And I get to the station. I'm so jazzed up, dude. And nothing. We get Mamaw that's had a runny nose for 2 weeks. We get little Bobby down here. He's got an infection on his toe. I'm like, where's the action? There's nothing. There was nothing exciting.
That's a vacation station down there. That's retirement station is what I like to call it.
I literally one time, so they would let you work back-to-back 24s. So you could work your shift and you could do a 24 overtime. So you work 48 straight. Yeah. I literally more than once, Kevin, worked 48 hours and never ran a call. More than once.
That would drive me insane.
I was losing my mind so much I ended up bringing home a stray dog. My wife's like, "What is going on here?" So there was a dog that came up. I'm like, "You're my best friend. You're now my best friend." And the dog stayed with me. And so then I ended up bringing him home, and then I brought him back and forth to work with me every day. Yeah. So anyways, I never get anything. And then one night, it was like 10:30 at night. I remember I just laid down, and the tones go off. And it's multi-car MVC at the intersection down near the casinos.
Live action. Let's go.
And we are not the closest unit. We're 30 minutes plus out from the scene, leaving the station. We're the first unit on the scene.
Oh no,
dude, it was chaos. There were probably, I don't want to give you a bad number, between 6 to 8 patients out of all the cars. One dude had compound femur fracture. There was a lot of activity. I remember calling for extra ambulances. Nobody's nearby. And so I called wing, and then I ended up getting a second wing because there was no ambulances available. We start landing wings everywhere. We start shipping off people. And that was the moment I'm like, I've arrived. I've done this. I was the one in charge. I mitigated this mass casualty incident because that's what it was.
That's what it was. It
was a mass casualty incident. And I said, I never felt it was bigger than me. Now I'm not getting a big head on this. I'm leading to points.
No, I mean, I completely feel where you're coming from.
Yes.
Go ahead. I see where you're going with this.
You know, I think when we are in life and we get tested, sometimes it's easy to question if we're capable. But when you get tested and you come out the other side and you're like, I felt so at home. I didn't feel overwhelmed. My sensories didn't overwhelm me. I was able to slow my pulse down. I was able to see things almost 10 times faster than what I normally would see something. I could see things happening or where it was going and then mitigate the problems. I'm like, this is for me. So those are my origin stories as to what got me to being guaranteed I was going to be a firefighter paramedic.
So where did Memphis happen at? When did Memphis finally call? When did this happen?
So I work for Eudora in DeSoto County for about 4 months, and South Haven Fire Department calls me. And I go to South Haven.
Okay.
And I'm an ambulance. I hadn't gone through the official 6-week at that time fire academy, and they had me slotted to go to the 6-week fire academy because I was going to be a firefighter paramedic at South Haven. Worked for South Haven for about 7 months, and it was a few weeks away before I was to go down to Pearl, Mississippi to get my fire, my firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and Memphis calls 2 weeks before I leave. And they offer me a job. It had been 3 years, Kevin. It had been 3 years.
They still had your app after 3 years?
They used to keep apps 5 and 6 years.
Wow.
They didn't hire like they do now. They would do a cattle call. 2,000 people would show up to the Mid-South Coliseum, do their thing, put in applications, and then wait and wait.
It was that competitive back then?
Nobody left. Nobody left the job.
Really? And now they're having to big recruitment events
constantly.
To have it.
They're pulling in people from all over the country.
Yeah.
Like right now in my class, I have several people that are from California. They recruited to come out here to work in Memphis.
Wow.
And back then they couldn't run people off.
Why?
Because
why is that? Why is that?
I think that a lot of it is the culture. People grew up, and I'm looking 30, 40 years ago.
Sure.
And if you found a good job that had good benefits, you stayed with it, you worked your career, you got your retirement benefits, and you went off into the sunset. And that was a mentality. And I think that what I've seen, and I can speak to this with some authority because I'm a professor. I teach paramedic school and advanced EMTs. A lot of the young folks, they have a 5-year turnover. Their interest isn't that long. They'll come in. I think the expectation is about 5 years, and then they move on to another job. Maybe they move on to a different department. They're not looking at the long game. Everything is very short-lived for them. So back then, it was very hard to get on Memphis. So when they give me a call, what do you think I did?
Run.
As fast as I can get there.
As you can, yeah.
I went back. I think I was on the unit when I got the phone call. And I went back to the station. I'm like, this is my 2-week notice. I'm out. Sorry. Yeah. I got to go. I love y'all. Thank you for the opportunity. That was always my goal. Always my goal. So go to Memphis and...
So before you go on, did you face any backlash for leaving South Haven, or were people happy for your success?
So I will say it was not surprising. In fact, 5 other people left with me from South Haven. And at that time, I remember getting my interview in South Haven with the chief and the mayor, and they even mentioned in the interview, look, we're not Memphis. We can't pay what they pay. Right. I think if I remember correctly, I was making $25,000 a year in South Haven as a paramedic. And Memphis was offering $28,000.
And what year was this?
That was in 2000.
Okay.
So 26 years ago. And so Memphis was offering $28,000 for the first 6 months. And once you came off probation, then it would go up to $40,000. And I was like, $40,000, I am going to be rich as crap. Nobody's going to be able to talk to me. Don't even talk to me. I'm going to go find me some fake jewelry and just wear it on my fingers. I was going to be that kind of rich. You know what I mean? And so I was like, funny. I was so fired up when they called me. And it was like I had set my sights on this goal that seemed impossible. And I was just grinding, constantly thinking about that's where I want to be. And everything I was doing was building towards that moment. So it was such validation. And so to really answer the question, they weren't surprised. Now, they didn't love to lose me because I was a very reliable. In fact, I was such a reliable employee. This is kind of maybe a little funny story. I don't know if it is or not, but it's funny to me. I show up on my last day. They knew my 2-week notice. I was working out my 2 weeks. Yeah. I show up on my last day of the set that I had to work. And the lieutenant there goes, I can't believe you're here. I was like, wow, I'm supposed to be here. It's my last day. He's like, exactly. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, have you called in sick since you've been here? I said, no. He goes, you got a bunch of sick time. You don't get to sell that. You don't get to keep it. Oh. He's like, are you still here? I was like, I'm picking up what you're laying down. All right, show me off sick. And I left. They were surprised. They were like, dude, why ain't you burning up your sick time? I guess that was the average, the norm. So the only reason why I actually left, there was a crawfish festival that evening, and I didn't want to miss it anyway. So I was like, yeah, good point.
I get to go to the crawfish festival.
We're out of here. Yeah. All right, next. So, I loved my time in South Haven. I still have friends from there that I talk to this day. The chief of South Haven, Danny Scallions, really good friend of mine. We came on, we went through paramedic school together. I mean, he was a lieutenant when I was on South Haven. So I've got great friends in South Haven, great connection. Love Danny. He's a great dude. He was at the... Did you get a chance to talk to him?
I did not get a chance to talk to him. I talked to the EMS coordinator.
Oh, okay.
Sam.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. She and I are friends.
Great group of folks over there. So definitely very appreciative to that time. But let's fast forward into Memphis. So I go through the academy, which was like 7 months long back then. It was horrible. It's crazy. We threw ladders for like 2 weeks. How many times can you put a ladder up on a wall and you're like, I think I'm good. I think I got this thing down pretty good. Yeah. I get assigned to Station 10.
Now, where's Station 10?
South Parkway in Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to actually listen to 666 Mafia, SOUTH, yeah, Park. Wait, I'd go into work, baby. I was fired up. I was embracing South Memphis. Now, we're about to get into the war within stuff because that's where this thing starts to happen, really. True story is, I thought I had been seasoned. Mm-hmm. Kevin, we just built the story of I spent 3 years working within fire and EMS in Mississippi. I had ran a bunch of calls. We had tons of car wrecks. What is important to note is in those 3 years, I ran 2 shootings. One was a guy that accidentally shot himself in the leg investigating a possible intruder. The other was a domestic situation, and the woman was okay. She wasn't kidding. Neither person died. Neither person was gory or horrifically injured. They had a bullet wound. 2 gunshots. That's going to play big in a minute.
Yeah, because you've just walked into gangland.
I literally had no idea what I had asked for.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought I did.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted the action. I wanted to be tested. I think that was the thing. I wanted to be tested. Mm-hmm. I told you those other stories because I wanted you to see. I was confident. I worked hard.
Right.
I didn't take it for granted. And I didn't think I was a paragod. I know that's a word that gets thrown around all the time. I didn't think I was that. What I wanted to be was great. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Me either.
I think anything you do in life, you should work really hard at, especially if you have a passion for it. You should try to be the best at it, whatever that thing is. Mm-hmm. That didn't mean that I looked down on anyone else. It didn't. It just meant that I wanted to be the best version of Chris Camp at that time, way before the days of Coach Camp, even though I was coaching sports, but wasn't coaching life then. I wanted to be the best version of me I could possibly be. And I get up to Memphis, and I'm working at Station 10, South Memphis, and it was the first set. It wasn't the first day, but it was in that first 3-day set. We get a phone call to a guy that tried to commit suicide and had shot half his face off. And he was alive, and he was fighting everybody. I don't know how gory you get on the show.
As gory as
but I'm going to be real. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to be real. That's the only way I know how to be. And he was fighting everybody. He was very combative. obvious reasons. And I'm the new guy. I'm the brand new medic. I'm riding what's called FTO, which is you have another medic riding with you. And you have to do that for a probationary period of 3 months in Memphis at that time. And we rode 24-hour shifts, which is very different than what they do now up there. They split 12s, which is helpful, even though the guys coming in that do 12s now don't understand that they should appreciate that. They still complain.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up in the shoes I grew up in, which I didn't mind either. So I'm on this unit for 24 hours anyway. So we come in and, man, this dude, it was chaotic. It was something out of a horror film. And he's fighting us the whole time. And me and the other medic I worked with, Tracy Anderson, one of the best freaking medics I've ever.
You worked with Tracy?
He was my FTO.
He was my boss at university.
So we have just made another dot connection.
Yeah.
And I can tell you in the field in those days when we were two young guys, because he was just a little older than me.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Very cool and calm under pressure.
Oh, he was a great boss.
I want you to know that is so important when you're a young dude. If he had been frantic, it would have made me frantic.
Absolutely.
But because I saw his calmness, it made me feel calm. And we managed this guy. We ended up having to unconventionally put him on a spine board face down because there was no such thing as suctioning fast enough just to keep him going. What I can tell you about this individual is he not only made it, he not only survived. I made him 2 other times down the road.
Are you serious?
I made him where he got shot another time in a gang-related situation. And then the 3rd time I made him down the road, it was a sore tooth. And I'm like, dude, I am so disappointed in you. I'm so disappointed. You have all this history of gunshots and you got a sore tooth and you've called me. What are we doing here today? But the truth was that was like one of my big moments. And then later that day, I make another shooting. So all of a sudden in my first set, I make 2 shootings. And I'm relating this to 3 days I make 2 shootings versus 3 years I made 2 shootings in Mississippi. And that was when I knew I was no longer in Kansas anymore, as they say.
Absolutely. So how'd you get on? Because when I was reading your bio and having conversations with my AI friends, as I do, one of the things that come up was the Memphis task force that you were on. So tell me about this particular and how you kind of got to a task force from a paramedic position, because very rarely do I hear this whole task force word thrown around unless you're going to disaster situations.
Right.
So is that more what it was, or was it a local thing where you're going to the worst calls or MCIs? Like what? Tell us what that is and how you got there.
Sure. So building towards that, I ended up being at Station 10 for about 3.5 years. And it is in one of the roughest parts of Memphis.
Now, were you the longest tenured person there to stay 3.5 years? Because I feel like there's a lot of guys that jump out of these busy stations because they're just overwhelmed.
You know, I don't.
Because I've experienced that from a few guests where we're like, they're like, I had a year of that and I had to get away.
As far as like the busy parts of town in Memphis, especially at that time. So this is a different mentality too. So we're talking early 2000s. People, like you said, they didn't have an understanding of what PTSD really, maybe they had it, but they didn't allow it. They didn't allow it to be talked about.
Right.
It would be taboo and it would not be right if you did. And so you just kept it to yourself. And at this moment in life, I'd been there for 3.5 years and there were other people that stayed there. And I think a lot of times people stayed at the busy stations if they had a good house. A house was more important than the call volume. If you had great people you worked with, that was your family, you didn't want to leave them because you ain't guaranteed to get that at the next place you go to.
Right.
And the grass is not always greener. So you pick one difficult situation over maybe something different. And so the busy stations back then, they tended to stay, I would say they stayed together for a long time. So all this is going to lead to my task force and my special operations stuff. But the formative years of Memphis was that 3.5 years because we were a family. We went camping together at Spring River. We went over to each other's houses at holidays, birthdays, kids' birthdays. We grew up. I mean, like for that 3.5 years, everybody at that station was tight knit. We were super tight knit, but I'm going to tell you why we became so tight knit. I didn't tell you a story about how PTSD kind of was introduced to me in South Haven. So I do want to back up a little bit real fast.
Yeah, let's go through it.
So this actually reminded me of whenever I was working in South Haven, right before I came to Memphis, I was out on a call on the unit and a little kid on a bicycle got hit in front of the station. And we didn't make it because we were out on a call. But we had another medic that was on the pumper in our station. So he's the first on the scene. He ends up being with this kid for a hot minute before other units get there. Now, I don't know the outcome of the kid after they left the scene. I know he kept him alive until the other unit got there. I know that part. But I don't know what the ultimate outcome was. But when we get back, this is my first introduction to you're not allowed to hurt. Mm-hmm. That's my first introduction to that. I got back and the medic had left. And I obviously I asked what's going on. They're like, man, we had a bad call. Mm-hmm. Kid got hit out front. I was like, oh man, it's horrible. I had not made anything quite like that yet.
Yeah.
Not with a kid.
Yeah.
Kids change the game. You know, you're a PD flight guy, but it changed the game for most first responders. That's not what you are comfortable with. And we talked about that on my episodes because that ain't supposed to happen to a kid. Mm-mm. And I just remember the lieutenant and one of the firemen saying, if he can't hack it, he needs to get out. I was like, God, I got to be able to hack it. I never even voiced that.
Yeah.
I never voiced it because what I knew was it's not okay for something to bother you in that moment. I knew I could never allow something to penetrate this armor I had to build. And that's not right. But that's what I was taught just then. So we'll fast forward to the 10s because I didn't want to go past the 10s and not tell that part because that was the beginning of the wall that I started to build.
Sure.
Within 3 months of me being at the 10s, my lieutenant was Trent Kirk, and he was one of the firemen that got killed in the Family Dollar Store fire. They had made the call, and they went in. It was on Father's Day, and they were looking for the person that actually ended up being the one that started the fire. And he is outside in the front watching. And my lieutenant died in that fire. It was important for me to tell you the part about South Haven because that plays into what happens next. I remember them calling me at the house because he was working overtime. My lieutenant was working overtime. And they were like, Lieutenant Kirk died in a fire tonight. And I'm like, no, he didn't. He's not at work. And they're like, no, he was working overtime. God.
You're good, man.
You know, Kevin, that's what happens when you relive it in your head. Mm-hmm. When you start to walk it back and you see those images, it's like I can remember sitting on that couch in my living room with my, at the time, girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Life had had a lot of changes. I got in a divorce. I was dating someone new. I was going through a lot. And I just remember my lieutenant was like a big mentor. And I thought of him as being unstoppable, super smart, super talented. I was learning everything I could. And here it is, 3 months I'm on a job. And the very thing that we're told could take our lives just happened in our own backyard.
Yeah.
And I did go back to that moment in South Haven in my head. And I'm like, why is it? I can't show anything. I can't show that this hurts. And so I literally went to the station the next day because it was our shift day. And I walk into the turnout room. I go to grab my turnouts and I turn around to walk back to the pumper just to start checking off stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the guys walks over and he takes my jacket off him. He goes, man, we ain't got to go to work today. I said, yeah, we do. Yes, we do. Because life doesn't stop. He's like, no, we get to grieve with this one. And that was the first time anybody had said to me, it was okay to have feelings on this job. It's real, Kevin. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm a young guy. I'm in my 20s. I didn't know that you could have feelings. I thought you couldn't have feelings. Mm-hmm. I thought you had to suppress everything, including losing somebody that was really close to you. You just had to just squash it. So I can't say it was PTSD that I got in that moment so much as just difficult loss, grief, sadness. But it was an absolute realization that this job is real and anything can happen at any moment to anybody. And I was like, God, this is tough. So I did go home. I had a long talk with my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, and she was an RN. She was an ER nurse. So she understood some of this, and she was like, you know, you just take some time. Don't make any decisions right now, because I wanted to quit.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't because I was scared of dying. It was because I didn't want to lose my life young. I wanted to be there for my family.
But was it a reality check in that moment?
Huge.
To know that that's the possibility.
Huge. It's like it happens to someone else.
Yeah.
You didn't think it could happen to you. And I think that was important for me to recognize early in my career. It absolutely can. And even if you're vigilant, doesn't mean that something bad can't happen.
That's right.
So what I had to come to terms with actually in that moment, and I have immense faith. I was saved at the age of 7, grew up in church, and have no doubt about where I'll be when I die. I had to come to absolute terms in that moment that whatever happens to me is God's will. And this is my passion and my calling. And I'm not gonna run away from it because of the idea that I could die, because we could die any day. And that became very real down the road. In that moment, I was still really young. Even though you had seen car wrecks and stuff, you didn't equate the situation to being that person woke up that day thinking they would have the rest of their life to do whatever, and they didn't go home that evening. You didn't have that reality. Even though I was making those calls, it didn't come that way until my lieutenant was killed.
But I want to hit on something important that you mentioned. The normal layperson is not going to have to face this reality most of the time within their lives, that what they're doing currently could possibly take their lives and have to deal with the true mortality of life and what it does and the consequences that may happen from something that we're doing. So I think that one of the things that affects our mental health is the fact that we have to deal with that mortality at some point, whether it's on a call, whether it's somebody close to you, in your case, dying on the job that you loved and were passionate about. This is all kind of something that we have to take into account, that when we leave the house in the morning, we may not return.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult. So I wanted to just point that out in your story, that there was that moment that you had to face that mortality and had to face that this actually could happen to me. It just happened to Trent. And that's kind of the basis of where this all starts to begin and starts to make sense. And the reason that you're emotional about this is because there's this reality moment that this has happened to somebody that you love, that's a brother. Just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, it was that. It was everything that you just said. And that was where I had to come to terms with, I had to be okay if my number was called. I had to be okay with it. Yeah. Because what I knew was I couldn't do the job with trepidation. You cannot do the job adequately if that is constantly on the front of your mind, that you are thinking about, I could die and I don't want to die. You have to be willing to do the job in the face of danger. You know, courage is not the lack of fear. Courage is acting despite the fear. And that's what I had to develop. I had to say to myself, if I'm going to do this. Now, I will say the suppression of emotions builds later in my career in a little bit of the story, because I can't give you the whole career in just an hour, but I just want you to know that it did play a role. I'm trying to hit the key highlights here. And I was like, you know what? I have to come to terms with, if a situation calls and I'm supposed to act, I will absolutely act regardless of what I think might happen. And I had to know that. I had to know that, because I couldn't do it timid. If there was a kid trapped in a house and there was any chance of saving them, there's no chance I stand in the front yard. None. I go in.
Absolutely.
That's the way it had to be. It could be an adult. I'm just using a kid as the example. Right. If there's a fireman down, I have to do whatever I can to get to him. There's no chance that I don't do it. So in those moments, and I don't know how long it took, actually, Kevin, I don't know if it was a couple weeks, a couple months. I don't know how long it took for me to really wrap my head around, I'm staying and I'm doing this and I'm going full tilt. But somewhere in that span, I'm like, this is what I'm going to absolutely dedicate to. And if I die doing my job, then I will die knowing I did the thing I was supposed to do. This is my purpose in life. This is where God wants me. So this is what I'm going to do. And that was truly how I felt about it. And that's why the tens, and that's why I backtracked a little bit. We became such a tight family. After you lose somebody in your family that, dude, you bond.
Yeah.
You just bond. So 3.5 years go by and an opportunity comes up. I had always thought about rescue because, again, I go back to Johnny and Roy. I wanted to be the top of the top. I wanted to be the best of the best. That was true. That was who I was all the time. And in fact, Mike Hancock, that was on my show not long ago, he was my volunteer firefighter chief. He'll tell you that. He's like, every time he saw me doing stuff, I wanted to be the best of the group every time. Sure. And opportunity came up to go to rescue. Memphis was putting a third rescue in play, and to be on the rescue team, you had to go through all these special operations classes, confined space, a high angle rescue with ropes, structural collapse, swift water, all the stuff. So it's about a year of training, everything all together. And because they were needing firefighter paramedics to be trained, because it was a very small group at that point, they only had 2 rescues, and it was relatively not too old to have rescue. There was probably less than 20 fully trained firefighter paramedics on the entire job.
Wow.
And it's over 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to be in the elites. I want to be in the elites, and I am going to work my tail off. And so when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. Now, that did leave a sour taste in the TN's mouth. My chief pulls up on a scene one time. I'm working a wreck on the interstate, and he pulls up in his chief car, and he gets out and he says, "Camp." I don't even know how he knew where I was at. But he's like, "Is it true? Are you leaving us?" Literally, this. I was like, "Chief Anthony, if I get a chance to go to the store," he goes, "You better hope it goes through." And he got in, slammed his door, and peeled out. I was like, I don't think he's happy with me right now. He was not too happy, but I love that guy.
Like a happy response.
It was not a happy response, but I do love that guy, and I got it. He was mad because he didn't want to lose me, and it's okay. You know, that's a compliment. As much as it hurt my feelings that he was so mad, I didn't want him to be mad. It was still a compliment, right? So anyways, the next steps are I go into this and I train for a year while I'm still on the job, and we're doing all the things, man, from structural collapse, confined space, hazmat, you name it, class after class after class after class. And when I finish with all this and I'm on rescue 2, now we're making all the high acuity calls. Somebody's trapped in something, we're the ones that go. If they're in a hole, I'm going down in the hole. If they're hanging off a building, I'm rappelling down and getting them. I am Johnny and freaking Roy, baby. I have made it. I have made it, and I am loving it. It's like I can't get enough of these calls. And I knew then that I made the right decision. Back then, when it was raw and it was hurtful, I knew I made the right decision. And anyways, then task force comes along. Tennessee Task Force is a specialized group, and they have several teams. They have a white team, blue team. And so basically, whenever you cycle through your teams, whenever there's a natural event or an unnatural event, it could be a terrorist attack like 9/11. It could be a hurricane like Hurricane Katrina. Any of these major events that happen in the Southeast region, the task force would be deployed. We still have that in Memphis, and it's other entities too. So it's like Germantown, or a few other people that are on that, and they go down and they mitigate whatever the problem is, whatever's needed. And I wanted to be on that, and so I had to go through these other classes, a little bit more stuff, and then I became a rescue specialist paramedic. So it's like, in my book, I don't know, super cool. Somebody may be watching this and be like, "It ain't that good," but in my book, I'm like, dude, cool, I got it. If anything, this is where I was at. It's like, it doesn't matter what happens. If the sky fell down on Memphis, I'm going to be involved helping. And I loved that. Yeah. And you got to understand, this is this little big country boy in Walls, Mississippi, that would have been like a fairy tale dream.
Yeah, you're doing big things, dude.
And now I've made it to there. Yeah. And all those people that doubted me all along, I'm just like, whatever, bro, whatever. I'm still grinding.
That's right. That's right.
So all of this comes to a head. I'll do this for a long time, and burnout is real.
Oh, yeah.
Even when you love something. And that's something I think that your audience needs to hear, because maybe they're in that moment. Maybe they're feeling burned out, but they're questioning, how could I be burned out? Because I still love my job. I still love doing what I do. How could I be burned out? And I didn't realize it. I didn't know how much damage I was doing to myself, doing everything all the time. If it was 24, 36 hours of overtime, I was working it. Every 4 day, I was working at least 24 hours of overtime, maybe 36 during the 4 day. So I hardly ever took a 4 day. I had a 3 day vacation come up. I'm working all 24 hours of all 3 of those days for overtime. I'm just like, I don't want to miss. Some people say FOMO. Maybe I had FOMO. I had a fear of missing out on something, and I hated to hear about a call that came in that was
you weren't there.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I wish I'd have been on that. I wanted it, Kevin. I wanted it so bad. And even I knew that it was really my calling, even whenever I almost got disintegrated. So we got called to 400 East Brooks Road. Are you familiar with this place?
Mm-hmm.
You know about 400 East Brooks Road?
I've heard.
It was a chemical plant. Caught on fire.
Yep.
Guess who the very first pumper was?
You, I'm assuming.
And guess who the driver was of that pumper?
Also you.
It was me.
Mm-hmm.
I was told such and such blew up. We're pulling out of Kroger. I see a plume of smoke. I am bawling out to this thing. We roll in. We get to the back of this dude. We're throwing 2.5 inches off. We're running up into this place. And Chip Sneed. I don't know if you're familiar with who Chip Sneed is.
Him.
He is an iconic Memphis legend. R.I.P. Chip. He just passed away this past year. Spent close to 50 years on the Memphis Fire Department.
Wow.
So every type of tactical rescue you could ever imagine. He rolls up on the scene. He starts yelling at us to get out of the building because there's explosives in there that react to water. We got out of that building, and I'm telling you, less than 10 minutes, it blew completely up. Had we been in there where we were, we'd all been just mushed. We'd have been blown completely to pieces. There's no way we would have survived it. And that was the first time that I had a life and death moment that I had survived. I started feeling pressure. I started feeling stress come back. I started having those moments where you wake up and your heart's beating fast. You don't even know why.
I've been there.
It's like, why? What's going on? I can't catch my breath.
Right.
Why am I having this? I didn't know. I didn't understand it. I didn't know that it was a version of PTSD happening. And then we have my wife and I, this started coming up like maybe every week I'd have a moment where it's like, it was a small, tight panic attack.
Right.
For no reason. Maybe we're at a birthday party with kids and I'm stuck breathing. I'm like, man, what's going on? It's weird. I never told anybody. It's like, I don't know what I'm anxious about.
Not even your wife at this point?
Wouldn't mention anything. I was just like, I was suppressing it. And I was just like, hey, it's probably not real. I don't know what it is. I wasn't having images. See, I think in my mind, PTSD was you wake up with a cold sweat with bad dreams and you're freaked out all the time and you see stuff that isn't there and you're having these hallucinations. Like that's what I knew PTSD to be.
Not necessarily.
I didn't know that compounding all of these events was starting to affect me.
Right.
So, anyways, my wife and I, we have a kid, my daughter, and it was leading into this. She was pregnant, and I'm looking back on it. I can make some connections to dots subconsciously. It has to be subconsciously. It wasn't conscious.
Yeah.
I think I was having anxiety of something happening to me, and I had a kid coming.
Sure.
And I'm like, I didn't know that that's what it really was. It wasn't about becoming a dad. I was already a dad once. At that time, I had a 12-year-old son. I think it was the dangerous calls I was going on, some of the close calls we had, because it was in 2007 when the thing blew up. And now this is 2009 and my daughter's being born. And through that time span, moments had started to come up on me. And I didn't know that's what it was. I had no clue. And it wasn't like we had counselors to go talk to. It wasn't like we had a resource. They say EAP, but man, nobody does that. Not back then. Nobody was going to call anybody.
Well, you're scared of retribution at that point. It's a whole different atmosphere than what it is now.
100%.
So you're scared you may lose your job or get suspended or whatever the case may be.
And in worst case, labeled.
Yeah, that's sometimes worse.
Labeled, because here it is. I had built this reputation and become this person that I dreamed of maybe one day becoming. And now I'm this dude. I'm that dude. If things were popping off, if the poop is hitting the fan, I want you to be like, get Chris Camp.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be the solve. I wanted to be the thing that fixed it. So here comes my daughter into the world, and it doesn't shake. It gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. And the feelings and the anxieties, I couldn't shake it.
Yeah.
And it came to a head. One day I get off work, and dude, some sets are just, you say worse, but they're just fuller than others, because a lot of sets had bad sets where I worked at. And we had made a bunch of death. We had made full arrests that, from nursing homes to shootings, you name it. We had made a lot of death. And it was the last day of the set. I was exhausted. At our station, if you got 3 hours of sleep in 24 hours, bonus, you win. Most of the time, you didn't get that.
Wow.
You just constant. I'm on my way home. I'm foggy, and I had one of those sets, a lot of death. I wrote down every call I ever made in Memphis, 6,216 calls. I have a journal of every call at my house. Could have brought it in today. It'd have been weird probably, but it's got every call. And you look at that book, and it was like DOAs and shootings and car wrecks. Death was as natural and normal in that moment in my life as seeing a dead animal on the side of the road. It didn't register. And I'm driving home from the station. I'm going down 55 South, and I look over, and underneath the overpass, I literally see a dude laying face down on the rocks underneath the overpass. And it's dusk, so the sun's just coming up. But I can clearly see there's a guy over there. And in my head, I say, and there's no one stopped. I said, that dude's dead. And then I kept driving. And within seconds, I forgot that I saw that. How do I know? Because I get home, and my wife, I'm having to get my daughter so she can go to work.
Yeah.
So it's the rush.
Right.
Here's she's been fed it, blah, blah, blah. She gets in her car. She calls me later. She calls me later. It's so funny. I tell you, she swells up on me. She calls me later. She says I was an hour late for work. And I was like, why is that? She's like, well, apparently there was someone dead on the side of the road on 55. I said, oh, yeah, I saw that guy. She was, why didn't you tell me? I said, I forgot. She just saw a dead person on the side of the road. Was there ambulance and stuff over there? I said, no, nobody's over there. I saw him. She was, you didn't call anybody, and you didn't tell me about it, and you forgot. You got a problem.
Yeah. So she called it.
I said, yeah, I do. I think I do. It was the moral injury.
Yeah.
We talked about.
Yeah.
I had objectified people so much that death didn't register. Why does that hurt now? Because I didn't know how I got there. Kevin.
And you had a moment in a season in your life that you lost the humanization side of what we do.
I did.
And that's why most of us do this, is so we can help people.
That's right.
And in that moment, because you're so morally injured and you're so kind of burnt out in that season, you miss it, and you drive on. Did the same thing with a police officer not long ago, and I realized I got to talk about this, because police officer was off the road, and I was like, oh, looks like a wreck, and just passed on by. Never thought about the human side of it.
Yeah.
I had to talk through that, because that police officer was injured. I could have stopped and gave some assistance and just drove right by. I've been there.
Yeah, I think it hurts so much for me is that I was always a caring person. I grew up in that family, the one that you always looked out for your neighbor. There was no part of me that was calloused in the way of looking at a human and caring about an individual, whether or not I knew him. But then suddenly, somehow, without recognition or knowing, it faded. It's like, how does that happen? And there wasn't like we had counseling we could just go to that you felt comfortable saying these things. So at that time in my life, this is 2009, I just started talking to friends. I started talking to other firefighters, paramedics. And I'll just tell you, in the end, it was one of the best moments that happened. And I realized I needed to step away from the action. And so that's whenever I transferred out to a slower station out of rescue, which is something I never saw coming. Never thought that would ever happen. Transferred over. And then from there, I was like, all right, this is too slow. Opportunity came up to teach at the fire academy. So I went to the fire academy and started teaching. And that's where I got into teaching for paramedic school and stuff, and loved it out there. So anyways.
So you do this and you transition. So tell me about when the fire career actually, fast forward a little bit for me. Where did the fire career actually come to an end? So
right before I went out to teach, I had a shoulder injury and I had surgery. And I go back out and I start teaching, and I taught for a little while, and they sent me back to the company, and I probably taught for 2 years. And I go back to company and I hurt my shoulder again. Just freak accident. Just hurt it. And then full reconstruction on the right shoulder, second surgery, injure my left shoulder, have a surgery on it. And the doctors finally say, look, you can't keep going. So everything that you had heard build up, and I had some ups and downs throughout my career, and I'd been teaching and I had made driver, and I was going back out, and I was just like, you know what? I love this job. Maybe I can just go and teach at the academy after my third shoulder injury, and they didn't have that at that time. They said you have to be qualified to go back to company. So they didn't give me an option. They said you got to retire. And so I had to retire. And I got to be honest with you, that's how my book opens. I have a book I'm writing right now. Hopefully it'll be done by this summer. And that's how it opens.
Looking forward to that.
Sitting in my car thinking about, how did I get here? How did I get to this moment? I loved everything I was doing. My whole career was laid out. I was going to be chief of the world at some point. Mm-hmm. And now I've walked out of an orthopedic office, and they're saying you cannot go back to firefighting. And it was an easy way to feel sorry for myself, but I said that's not who I am.
So we talk about this a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this. It sounds like you're going to resonate with this as well. But we make the job our identity. We make our badges our identity. How did you deal with that being completely ripped away? All in one fell swoop. This is gone. Doctor says you're never coming back. Like, tell me what that does to your mental health and where you go from there.
Without question, I did the thing most humans would do, and I felt victimized. Mm-hmm. I was like, it ain't fair. I've not done anything wrong. You couldn't rationalize. Like, I made bad choices. This is what's happened. So there wasn't anything you could go to. And what I had to realize was that there's a point and a purpose for everything in life. And if you have true faith, you lean in on that. And I was like, all right, so God, you took this away from me. There's a purpose for it. What do you want? What do you want next? And within 24 hours, literally from the moment I was retired, June 30th, 2016, within 24 hours on July 1st, I had an email from Miss Mary Maddox asking me if I wanted to come teach.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's crazy. That's wild. So I said, yes, I'll come teach, and maybe I'll get my stuff together, go be a physician assistant. I don't know. Maybe that's what I'll do. So I went for a 1-year plan, sir. I was going to teach for 1 year. I've now been there 10. So it definitely changed for me.
So tell me what drives this. When you're teaching and you're in front of EMTs and paramedics, and you're teaching these lessons, you're teaching them how to be, how do you weave in this story to go, do what I did or don't do what I did? How do you teach them to be the professionals that we wished were on the battlefront with us when we're going through the things that we don't feel like we can feel, or we're having that hard call? How are you teaching those principles to the new generation of paramedics?
Funny enough that you would say that, because I do have a system. It's I like to use this analogy all the time. Mr. Miyagi. For those of you that know Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. He had a very specific purpose for each of these things. Danielson couldn't understand it. He's like, why can't I just do this? He's like, there's a reason, right? So at the end, it all comes together. The process is what mattered. And I use that analogy in class a lot. But I start day one with this. I have 2 rules in my class. Don't be late and don't suck. And that's it. Those are the only 2 rules I have. What does suck look like? You're not giving your best. Who do you owe your best to? Yourself. You don't owe it to me. And I'm not going to allow you to fail you. And that's my storyline. And that's what I go with. I'll drive home. Don't be past 9 o'clock, because I want people to have a sense of understanding of urgency and responsibility with prioritization. So I build that in from day one. The don't suck part, I want to build accountability. I want them to realize this is their journey, not mine. Mm-hmm. I'm here to facilitate and give you tools. You have to take ownership. And if you don't take ownership, you'll never be better than you are. So you got to work hard. Now, along the way, I have a year with paramedics. I have a semester with AMTs.
Yeah.
I use life moments and scenarios that we do to try to infuse those growth moments I had. So it's really just taking from the stories of the past and putting wisdom into them about why it's important. Because I think a lot of times we live life in a way that we don't understand what we're doing is important, and we lose the lesson. And I've seen so many times students, and I'm not getting everybody, don't get me wrong. If I had a class of 20 students, maybe 5 to 10 will buy in and actually grow.
Sure.
You're not going to get everybody. Sure. I realize that. But I'll have those students that will listen, and they will actually just really wrap their arms around, this is the process. Mm-hmm. And they'll come back to me and they'll be like, man, I'm glad you showed me this. I'm glad you talked about that. You made this impression on me. And I share real true stories that I've experienced, why it's important. And I'll use a lot of my failures. I will tell them so many of my shortcomings, of things I stepped past, I missed, whatever, because I don't want them to make the same mistakes. And I think that's the privilege that we have. And I call it a privilege of, if you've lived some years, much like yourself, sir, and you've been down some tough roads, if you don't share that with other people, it's wasted. Don't waste your moment. And it was through that my students one day said, "You don't teach class, you coach." And I was like, "Yeah, I coach. I coach sports for 30 years. It's like, "No, you don't understand. You're a coach. You coach."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." They started calling me Coach Camp in a class. Then it was my class. Several semesters, not the same group. They kept saying, "You need to be a motivational speaker. You need to be a motivational speaker." I'm like, "Why? I'm just telling you stuff I know." I was like, "All right, I'll try it." So I started doing that. It was through that got me with Derek. And I started podcasting. What I realized was God said, "Boy," smacked me on the head. Not literally, but it felt like it.
Yeah.
He's like, "I've given you all these tools. You better share with more people." And so that's where we are. So I'm so humbled by the idea that I could come on a show like this. I could stand on the stage like I did at the PTSD conference. I can go to an autism conference next weekend and share the message that's been given to me through personal experience and through other individuals, because the message is so much more important than I am. I am only the facilitator, and that's the only reason why I'm here.
Oh, I love that. I love that. As we start to wrap up, because we're almost out of time,
Yeah.
we'll have to talk about a part 2, because this is too good to just waste, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've got so much life experience. I love everything that you're giving us, your honesty, your vulnerability. I love that about you. Just seeing it on stage, for you guys who weren't there, gosh, it was so good to see somebody that was real and knew us and knew what we struggle with. What do you say? What does Coach Camp? I'm not talking to Chris. I'm talking about Coach Camp, the motivator. What do you say to that guy who's in your shoes, who doesn't feel like he can feel, yet he loves his job, but he's faced some kind of moral injury. He's burnt out, whatever the case may be. He's feeling suicidal. What do you say to that person who's in that struggle, but still loves what they do, but they're dealing with some hard stuff?
What I would say is, first, this. So much of life is actually simple, but simple is not easy. Easy is different. Simple just means there's a process there. You just have to go down that. But it's not always easy. So the simple answer is reach out. I know that's not easy, but you need to. Don't think you can figure it out. And I understand there were two things. There were two trains of thought back in the day. Either one, you could be labeled, or two, it was just taboo to talk about because you were weak. And none of those things are actually true. The reality is this. If you love your job, don't be willing to sacrifice this purpose and this calling because you have too much pride or too much fear, whatever it is, to reach out to somebody. And just because you reach out to one person, or you have reached out to someone in the past and maybe it didn't work, doesn't mean it won't work. Try someone else. It's just like this. It doesn't matter. You probably dated. Most people probably date more than one person.
Yeah.
It takes a second to get it right.
Yeah.
Okay? It's no different for counselors. There are resources. There are places you can go. There are paths you can take. And it will not only salvage your job, but it'll salvage the person that you are and who you're becoming. Don't take the path of coping with the wrong choices, because that also leads to a road of destruction. So reach out to somebody, because I promise you there are people out there that care. There are a lot more resources than there used to be. There needs to be more. So if you are somebody hearing this podcast and you're thinking to yourself, I've always thought maybe that was my path, is I need to reach out and help first responders, I'm going to encourage you to please do that now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I don't get to do this often, but I get to shake your hand physically.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. Hey, thanks for coming out to SRP Studios.
This has been great. It's a great experience. I've loved having you on the show. Again, thank you for everything you've given us. Your experience is overwhelming just to read this guy's resume. So I always give the guests a minute to have the mic. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can follow you at. Give us the shameless plug. I love a good shameless plug.
Yeah, here's the shameless plug. Real simple. If you go to Facebook, I'm under Christopher Camp. I've never changed that for whatever reason. So Christopher Camp, please go in there and follow me. But then also, if you want to follow the podcast, at motivatewithcoachcamp.com is my website. You can get the podcast. You can go to Instagram. If you go to my TikTok, it's less inspiring because I just never get on TikTok. But definitely the podcast and YouTube. And hey, look, we always have guests on here. We have a lot of first responder stuff. And Kevin Wetzel, I don't know whenever this episode's coming out, but he's going to be on my show. So if he's already come out, look him up.
Man, you guys go follow Motivate with Coach Camp. Awesome podcast. I've gotten into it, been listening to it, love it. Like he said, I'm a guest on there now, so we had a great time earlier just before this. And as always, you guys know you can reach out to us for anything. If you guys need us, we have peer support trained team that can help you and can walk you through this and give you unlimited amount of resources. The one thing we've gained from doing this show for the last year is that we have a wealth of information and resources now, and we're very excited to continue this wave of support that we've gotten. It has been very overwhelming for me to see the need for this and kind of blossom. I think we're really going places. I think we're doing good things. Chris is part of that ride now, so thank you so much for being part of this. And as always, you guys go look us up, watch some stuff. You don't have to go listen to the full podcast. You can go watch some of our clips and gain just as much from that as you would the whole podcast. Obviously, I encourage you to watch the whole podcast. We stream on Spotify, we stream on Apple Podcast, and we stream on YouTube as well. We also post our shorts, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So go watch us, go check us out. Chris, again, thank you. Thank you guys for listening, watching, whatever you did, whatever platform you chose to watch us on. And as always, be safe, take care of your mind, and we'll talk soon. Goodbye, everybody.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.